Where should we go? Marjorie Taylor Greene asked me to kick off the America First rally tour. The Villages, I said. Thank you all so much. I cannot tell you how much this means to me to have you here supporting Marjorie and I. I'm a marked man in Congress. I'm a canceled man in some corners of the internet. I might be a wanted man by the deep state, but I am a Florida man, and it is good to be home. You're the lucky ones. You got in. There are more than 1,000 people outside that wanted to be here. And I think 2 of them might have been Antifa. There is not a strong Antifa chapter in the Villages. I don't think any of the people on the Republican side running for president in 2024 could draw a crowd this big if their name wasn't Donald Trump. And so today, we send a strong message to the weak establishment in both parties. America First isn't going away. We're going on tour. Here in Florida and across this great country, we love America so much, and we will not wave the flag of surrender in the face of the Democrats, the socialists, the deep state, or the establishment. America is too precious. We love her too much, and we will never stop fighting for her. This is our first stop, but there will be many more, and America's greatest president and the undisputed leader of the Republican Party, Donald J. Trump, might join us on a few, or we might join him. We have never abandoned Trump, and he has never abandoned America. He is still fighting for us. He will continue to fight for us, and we're going to have his back when he does. The way forward is not a repackaged, regurgitated version of Paul Ryan's Better Way. And it's certainly not the Green New Deal and the socialist way. Our way, America First, will rule the day. Isn't it obvious? It's our ideas, it's our patriotism and positive populism that fills the rallies from the prairies of Wyoming to the villages of Florida. On immigration and trade, we will stand with America's workers, not the socialist billionaires or the corporate Woketopians. We will oppose the forever wars that send America's bravest patriots to faraway lands for unknowable gain, and we will stand with American families against the genderless, blue-haired Woketopians of the Chaz. They tried to make part of Seattle an autonomous zone. Then they took over the Democratic Party, and they actually made the Democratic Party their autonomous zone. We will make sure that America is an autonomous zone for freedom and liberty and success and prosperity, and we will not apologize for it 1 minute. To my friend, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, we know Georgia needs you. There's a lot going on in Georgia, but you should consider Florida your second home. You would make a great Florida woman. You know why they go after Marjorie the way they do. She is an unbossed Congresswoman. Unbossed, unbought, unbowed. That is the mantra of America First. We will not cave We will not cave to the foreign interests abroad or the special interests here at home. We will put our people first, and we will not make exception for that. And so, if you believe that America is a wonderful country, not an intractably racist country, if you believe that MAGA is patriotic, not deplorable, if you stand for the flag and kneel in prayer, if you want to build America up and not tear her down, then welcome, my fellow patriots. This is the movement for you. You belong with us to help our country to be prosperous and patriotic and unafraid. And so this tour is an invitation to our fellow patriots to join a positive populist movement. And we need our fellow patriots to join us because it is no longer just the red team against the blue team in politics. It's the establishment against the rest of us. And you know what? There's more of us than there are of them. They know it. That's why they're so afraid. That's why they hope that this movement dies. But we will never let her die because we will never let America die. From the deep state in government to the deep fakes in media, they try to defame, deplatform, and destroy that which they cannot control. And they could not control Trump, and they could not control me, and they certainly can't control Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Big government, big media, big tech, they would all breathe a sigh of relief if Marjorie Taylor Greene and I were no longer in the Congress fighting for you. They lie about us because we tell the truth about them, and we are not going to stop. And we are not powerless in this fight. We are a powerful movement. You are powerful people. As President Trump reminds us, we are the elite now. And so let our beautiful, cherished Constitution be our guide. We have a right to speak freely and to assemble, and we better use it. The terms of service on Twitter should never be more important than the values that undergird the First Amendment of our Constitution. And we need more than just a legalistic definition of the First Amendment. We need a culture of free speech in America. Can you believe the Facebook Oversight Board took President Trump off of their platform? What does that say? They're afraid of the truth. YouTube. Thank goodness YouTube does not define the truth or falsity related to the coronavirus. I think they do, but we shouldn't let them. YouTube would have banned Galileo if they had the chance. But the internet hall monitors out in Silicon Valley, they can't cancel this rally or this movement or this tour or this congressman. We have a right to bear arms in this country, and we better use it. The Second Amendment is not about hunting. It is not about sports shooting. The Second Amendment is about maintaining within the citizenry the ability to maintain an armed rebellion against a tyrannical government if necessary. And you know what? People may not like that. That might not be politically correct, but that is the truth. And oftentimes the truth is politically incorrect. We have a right to be free of unreasonable search and seizure, and we better protect it. For anyone who thinks that the deep state doesn't exist, if you have any of those friends that say, oh, if you think the deep state exists, you're a conspiracy theorist. Just look at what we've seen. An FBI lawyer changed evidence before a secret court to have the opportunity to surveil someone that they thought was close to President Trump so that they could exact their politics through the FBI. Former FBI disgraced director Jim Comey admitted under Congress that he leaked information for the purpose of getting a political investigation going. The former director of national intelligence, James Clapper, came before Congress and said, there is not mass collection of American data for surveillance. Turns out there was mass collection of American data for surveillance. Look at what they did to General Michael Flynn, a patriot for our country. Michael Flynn was going to reorganize the intelligence community and say that we had to stop just focusing on Russia and we needed to rise to the challenge to confront China, and they prosecuted him for it. The deep state is real. It is in places you wouldn't even think. The deep state is even at the post office. The United States Postal Service has an internet covert operations program. The post office. You know what? Deliver my mail on time and on budget before you spy on the social media proclivities and activities of our fellow Americans. I am proud to tell you that Marjorie Taylor Greene and I have introduced legislation to abolish the deep state internet covert operations program at the post office. We have a right to confront our accusers in this country. How about that? There can be no due process here if the only process due to conservatives is to see leaks embroidered onto lies, then just endlessly repeated by the America Last media. I hope you guys show the 1,000 people outside that wanted to be in here to hear this message. But there are sometimes exceptional journalists who turn the cameras onto the liars. And in that vein, let me say, thank God for Project Veritas. It's not often you get an admission on video. But a CNN director on video said the reason they were repeating these lies and propagandizing my life is because I'm effective. Because I stand in the way of an agenda that will hurt my fellow Americans. They will not silence me, we will not back down, and the truth will prevail. CNN is just the worst. I already know, so today is my birthday. And I already know how CNN's going to report it. Matt Gaetz has wild parties surrounded by beautiful women in the villages. So just get ready for it. Marjorie Taylor Greene and I work in Washington, but we are not of Washington. And I must honestly tell you that the leaders of both parties in Washington, D.C. don't work for America First. They work for permanent Washington. Washington PACs fund their campaigns. Washington lobbyists broker their power. Their place in Washington drives every decision they make all throughout the day. And unfortunately, the wants and needs of the people often suffer. You know, the swamp is not just dangerous because it holds unruly creatures. There's a muck that sucks you in, drags you down, limits your escape. Marjorie and I are not powerful by typical measurements in Washington. She's lost her committees. I may lose mine. But we have a power that they can never take away, and it is tied to our connection to the people in this great country. You know who the fighters are. You can distinguish the phonies and the fakes from the real deal, and President Trump gave us the opportunity to see who is fighting for us clearly and decisively. America First means actually leaving Washington and going out into America. Part of being populist is showing that you are popular. Maybe our leadership should give that a try. If Liz Cheney could even find Wyoming on a map and went there, she would find a lot of very angry cowboys who are not happy with the fact that she's sort of for every war. War in Syria, for it. War against Trump and his supporters, for it. War against the Republican conference, war against her own voters. Well, it appears that enough of my colleagues on the Republican side have seen things our way, the way that we kind of laid out 3-4 months ago. And it appears that Liz Cheney may no longer be the chair of the Republican conference. This might be the first war she's ever sought to end. You know, the neoconservative war on the world might have been more tolerable if it wasn't also a war on the pocketbooks of so many Americans. Like during the Obama, Bush, Cheney eras of interventionism, our gas prices were just through the roof. And during the Trump era of peace and prosperity and recognition for Israel and not starting new wars, actually gas got a lot less expensive. So now, with a peace dividend, we have fewer of our bravest, most patriotic Americans coming home without arms and legs, and gas doesn't cost an arm and a leg in the Trump era. But you see now it's going up because of the bad decisions made by Joe Biden. We must put our citizens first. And speaking of citizens and citizenship, I don't think we should give citizenship to people who don't come to our country legally. Americans are dreamers too. But the Biden immigration plan is no dream, it's more of a nightmare. And there's this political coalition on immigration that team up to screw over the American people. So on the left, it's all about political power. That's the whole reason they are for limitless legal, illegal immigration, whatever they got to do to get people across the border. There are folks who were remaining in Mexico for their asylum claims to be resolved. Keep in mind, less than 1% of these people actually have valid asylum claims. But they were staying in Mexico, and now Biden is getting them in Mexico and distributing them in the United States as if they're going to show up for some asylum hearing. Do not let the Republican Party regress on this issue. Donald Trump showed clearly that we are not the party of amnesty. And so why do Democrats need this? It's a political refill. When you look at the major cities controlled by Democrats, San Francisco, LA, Chicago, New York, Detroit, they're in ruin. And so what they have to do is they have to have a political refill of a new population because they have failed the voters who have trusted them the most, oftentimes for generations. Now, I guess you need new blood when the old blood is toxified with pollutants, spilling in the streets in violence, and pulsing with addiction. And on the right, we've got establishment Republicans who are just all too willing to be shills for big corporations. And we got too many big corporations that are just fine with illegal immigration. They sort of diminish their risk by using employee leasing companies, and that is a basis to keep wages down for the American people or legal immigrants who have come here according to our process. It's about money and it's about power, and we have to stand against it. But if we want our politics and our policies to get better, if we want our trade deals to get better, if we want our money to be sounder, if we want our borders to have integrity, then our elections must have integrity. And the Democrats and all their buddies on these big corporate boards, they're telling us that getting an ID requirement to vote is racist. Now keep in mind, the very people who are telling you that getting an ID to vote would be racist want to require vaccine passports. So if an ID, well, I'll put it this way. If requiring vaccine passports isn't racist, then requiring an ID to vote isn't racist. And I think my colleague, Burgess Owens, said it best. Burgess Owens is a black Republican, serves from Utah, was in the NFL, tackled OJ. And Burgess says, requiring an ID to vote isn't racist. Assuming that black people can't get an ID is what is racist. And so we support the brave patriots in Georgia and in Florida and all across this country that want to protect the integrity of the vote. And that is going to be a major part of this tour that Marjorie and I bring across the country, demanding voter integrity. I do not diminish the challenge that is ahead. Democrats control some very powerful institutions. They control the presidency, the House, the Senate, and they're using that power to try to demoralize and at times even target their political enemies. But in America, patriotism always shines through when we demonstrate toughness and grit. In 1772, Sam Adams sent James Warren around the communities of Plymouth. And the goal was to try to excite the notion of independence in people and to get them engaged and thoughtful and proactive regarding the notion of a new great American nation. The patriotic spirit was always coming and going, and there were times it was more going than coming. And Warren reported back to Adams, all are dead, and we cannot raise the dead without a miracle. Speaking of the patriots and those that we needed to maintain a revolution. And Adams replied, never despair. Let that be the motto of you and me. All are not dead, and where there is but a spark of patriotism, we will rekindle it. My friends, that spark is a raging inferno here in Florida and across the great MAGA nation. This is not a movement for the timid or the tired. This is a movement about winning. Winning so much that we get tired of it. After all, isn't that what we were promised? God bless you. Thank you. Thanks for having my back. Thanks for fighting with us. Let's go get them.